Who gave you this world? What if no one did? They tell you this world is real because it feels real, because pain stings, because memories warm your chest, because the faces you meet answer back when you speak. But sensation has never been proof of truth, only proof of experience. And experience can be manufactured just as easily as it can be lived. Imagine for a moment that every street you have walked, every voice that has ever spoken your name, every conversation that convinced you life was shared rather than solitary, is nothing more than the architecture of a lie so well designed that you mistake it for reality. Descartes warned us of this possibility, a deceiver powerful enough to control perception at its roots, not by hiding the truth, but by replacing it with something indistinguishable from it. A mind that feeds you not merely false answers, but false questions, so that even your doubt is guided by the hand that tricks you. And if that terrifies you, then the next thought should destroy you. Because there is another possibility, colder and infinitely lonelier. There is no deceiver, no cosmic puppeteer, no architect of illusions behind a veil. There is only you. Solipsism waits like a locked door in the mind, whispering that you might be the only conscious being in existence, that every person you've ever loved or hated or envied is nothing more than a projection necessary for your experience to feel complete. If that is true, your entire life has been a monologue disguised as dialogue, a play in which the audience, the actors, and the applause are all illusions produced by a single consciousness that cannot bear the weight of its own isolation. The world does not exist because it was given to you, but because you cannot stand the idea of having nothing. So the question is no longer, is this real? The question is whether reality has ever been yours to evaluate. If a demon built it, you are a prisoner. If your mind built it, you are alone. In both cases, the world collapses under the same conclusion. The certainty you live with every day may be the most elaborate hallucination you will ever know. And now that the door is open, you cannot unknow that you might be the experiment, the restrained observer, the only consciousness awake in a universe that may never confirm your existence. If you continue down this path, the ground beneath your beliefs begins to crumble. Because once you accept that perception can be engineered, the authority of your senses evaporates. If sight can be deceived, if memory can be planted, if emotion can be scripted, what's left to anchor you? Descartes tried to pull himself out of the abyss with one sentence, cogito, ergo sum, as if the simple act of thinking were enough to prove that the thinker exists. But even that feels fragile when you realize a perfect illusion would also allow you to think, to doubt, to resist. A flawless deception would never reveal itself. The most successful prison is the one that teaches you there are no bars. And yet, solipsism offers no comfort in comparison. It promises power. This world is yours. You are the axis on which reality spins. But the price is unbearable. Because if the world is built from your mind, then every funeral you've attended, every goodbye that broke something inside you, every moment you begged the universe for mercy, was nothing more than a performance staged for an audience of one. The grief was scripted. The loneliness was self-inflicted. You were the author of the knife and the wound. There is no puppeteer to blame. There is no system to rage against. The horror is not that someone controls you, but that no one does. This leaves us in a place philosophers rarely admit out loud, a reality that is either a cage or a hallucination, a world that might be meticulously constructed or might not exist at all. And the most haunting part is that we cannot know. Every attempt to prove reality depends on the tools reality gives us, like trying to measure a dream with objects from the dream itself. The test fails before it begins. The evidence contaminates itself. Certainty becomes impossible. So what are you left with? A question that echoes through the mind like a cold wind. A participant? A subject? A glitch that learned how to ask too many questions. Maybe there is no answer. Maybe the answer is the asking. Maybe consciousness isn't a gift but a spotlight that forces you to look at a stage you never auditioned for. And somewhere, behind the curtain or deep inside your skull, the truth waits, not to be understood, but to be confronted. Then consider this. If reality is curated, the curation must be intentional. Not random, not accidental, crafted. Which means every coincidence, every impossible moment of timing, every dream that felt like a memory, and every memory that felt like a dream, could be artifacts of design. Not proof, but fingerprints. Scratches on the lens, static in the signal. Moments where the illusion glitches just enough for you to feel it, but not enough to prove it. And haven't you felt it? That strange pause in a conversation where someone's eyes look empty for a heartbeat too long. That déjà vu that feels less like, I've seen this before, and more like, the scene repeated. That sense of being watched, not by a presence, but by an evaluation, like existence itself is studying your responses. Descartes feared a demon with infinite intelligence orchestrating this, an entity capable of manufacturing not just illusions, but belief. But in a modern world of neural interfaces, artificial intelligence, quantum observers, and simulated environments, the demon doesn't need claws or fire. It only needs code. It only needs control. A perfect deception doesn't terrify you. It convinces you there was never anything to fear. Yet solipsism counters with something colder. No demon. No design. No puppeteer. Just you, suspended in a void, fabricating a universe to avoid the terror of isolation. Every voice you hear might be a ventriloquist act of the mind. Every conversation might be monologue in disguise. Every face might be a projection painted on a mannequin of perception. And when you speak to others, you might be answering yourself. Which is more terrifying, being a prisoner in someone else's labyrinth, or realizing you built the labyrinth to give your loneliness a shape? And here comes the fracture point, the philosophical breaking of the spine. If you can't trust the world, and you can't trust yourself, what remains? Thought? Awareness? The faint sensation of observing a nightmare you can't wake from? Maybe that's the answer Descartes never reached. Maybe certainty isn't the foundation of consciousness. Maybe uncertainty is. Maybe to exist is to be trapped in a question that can't be answered from inside of it. A fish defining the ocean without ever leaving the water. A dream trying to explain the dreamer. So let's strip away the comfort, the narrative, the illusion of stability, until nothing is left but the root of the terror. You cannot prove the world exists. You cannot prove anyone else is conscious. You cannot even prove you are real in the way you think you are. And if that realization doesn't crack something inside you, you didn't understand it. Then sit with the possibility, not as a metaphor, not as a philosophical exercise, but as a lived condition, that existence may be a stage with no audience, a confession with no listener, a prison where the bars are made of perception and the key is made of doubt. Because if the world is a fabrication, the fabricator isn't necessarily malevolent. The true horror is indifference. A demon who hates you still acknowledges you. A universe that ignores you doesn't. Descartes imagined deception as a hostile intelligence. Today, we imagine it as architecture. We trade demons for algorithms, nightmares for simulations, and theology for code. But the function is the same: to question the source of experience. If a fake landscape feels real, if false emotions burn like fire, if synthetic memories ache like scars, does the truth even matter? Or does the illusion become the truth by virtue of being lived? And solipsism whispers an even sharper blade. If nothing can be confirmed beyond the borders of your mind, then the world doesn't need to lie to you. It just needs to be convenient. The streets are exactly where you expect to be. The people behave just close enough to human to pass. The rules of physics hold, until they don't. The universe imitates consistency like an actor imitating a language they don't speak. It performs reality instead of being it. Maybe that's why the cracks show, why conversations repeat, why strangers resemble dreams, why certain places feel like sets struck overnight and rebuilt by morning, why grief feels scripted, why joy feels borrowed. why memory feels edited. If the demon exists, its victory is not convincing you that the illusion is real. Its victory is making you prefer the illusion to the possibility of truth. Because here is the cruel symmetry of the thought experiment. If a demon deceives you, you are powerless. If solipsism is true, you are alone. If reality is real, you are irrelevant. There is no version of this where you are safe. And so the mind reaches for the only anchor Descartes could justify. Not the world, not the senses, not identity itself, but the experience of thinking. The one undeniable spark. The candle burning in a room that might not exist. I think, therefore I am. But even that isn't salvation. It isn't escape. It's just the last island that hasn't been swallowed by the sea of doubt. A sentence whispered into the void with no promise of an echo. So ask yourself, with the weight of every possibility pressing inward, if this world is a simulation, would you want to know? If everyone around you is imaginary, would you admit it? If a demon controls your reality, would you dare confront it? If nothing exists outside your mind, would you survive the silence? And if the answer is no, maybe that's why the illusion holds. Then let's push further, not for certainty, but for pressure. Because the closer you get to the edge of this idea, the more the ground underneath begins to feel designed rather than discovered. If Descartes' demon exists, it doesn't need fire or claws or threats. It only needs to shape the rules of your experience. It needs to make contradiction feel impossible, coincidence feel natural, and control feel like freedom. It needs to make you forget that you are being managed. Think about the strangeness of memory. Not the poetic kind, the mechanical kind. How it edits itself, misplaces details, reorders chronology, softens what should hurt, and sharpens what shouldn't. If your memories can be rewritten by your own brain, what stops a larger intelligence, biological, artificial, supernatural, or otherwise, from doing the same thing at scale? A demon doesn't have to invent a universe, it only has to curate one. Like a director adjusting a frame, trimming the edges of your perception so you never see the studio lights above the set. And solipsism intensifies the discomfort. Because if the demon is external, at least there's a confrontation to be had. But if the illusion originates from within, if the world is projected like light from a lantern inside your skull, then every question becomes self-devouring. Are you having a conversation, or negotiating with fragments of your own mind? Are you challenged by others, or only by the limits of your imagination? Solipsism doesn't ask, is the world real? It asks, if it isn't, how long have you known? And why, despite that suspicion, do you continue to play along? Notice how the world behaves when you question it, how quickly it produces answers, too quickly, how patterns seem to tighten rather than fray, as if the simulation is correcting itself in real time, as if the puppet strings tense the moment the puppet looks up. In a stable reality, confusion leads to clarity. But in a curated reality, confusion triggers maintenance. Errors get patched, glitches get repainted. You lose track of what you were trying to expose. So the real question isn't what is real, but how far are you willing to follow the doubt? Follow it through the demon, and reality becomes predation. Follow it through solipsism, and reality becomes confinement. Follow it through rationalism, and reality becomes a negotiation with your senses. Follow it through science, and reality becomes a probability we measure, never fully touch. Follow it far enough, and the conclusion is not revelation, but exhaustion. Not enlightenment, but vertigo. Not truth, but the collapse of the need for truth. Because if you strip away religion, memory, sensory experience, the testimonies of others, the consistency of matter, the fabric of language, and the assumption of linear time, what remains is not a universe, but an observer. There has never been a world without you to witness it, and that either makes you the prisoner or the architect. So let this settle like something heavy on the chest. If the world is real, you are a fleeting spark in an indifferent cosmos. If the world is false, you are a hostage of a hidden intelligence. If the world is internal, you are the warden of your own cage. The only escape is impossible. The only witness is yourself. And the only honest question left to ask is this: if the demon is real, would you want to see its face? Or have you already seen it in the mirror? What if the demon doesn't hide by erasing evidence, but by providing too much of it? Conspiracies, faiths, sciences, hallucinations, déjà vu, quantum indeterminacy, dreams that feel like messages, coincidences that line up like choreography. None of them outright prove anything, yet none of them fully collapse either. They hover in that uncanny middle ground where belief and paranoia blur, a liminal zone where the mind becomes both telescope and trap. It's the perfect prison, one where you never get enough proof to escape and never get enough silence to forget. Descartes tried to reason his way out, to break reality open like a puzzle whose edges would eventually align. But what if edges don't exist? What if the puzzle was drawn in chalk, and every answer wipes the picture away a little more? Solipsism doesn't close the door behind you, it takes the hallway away. And yet, there is one thing every illusion depends on: consent. Not agreement, not belief. Consent. The demon doesn't need your trust, only your participation. It needs you to wake up, eat breakfast, answer messages, fall in love, panic, sleep, repeat. It needs you to keep showing up for a script you never got to read. Maybe that's why moments of silence feel dangerous, why true stillness makes the air feel like it's waiting. Because silence is the only space where the machinery of reality becomes audible. If you've ever felt like the world pauses when you stop performing, if you've ever felt like conversations restart the second you re-enter a room, if you've ever caught someone's face flicker with an expression that wasn't meant to be seen, then you already know what I'm talking about. Some simulations glitch quietly. Some simulations glitch like they want you to notice. If this world is a thought experiment, then you are both subject and instrument. If this is a test, you are the question that cannot be graded. If this is a trap, you were the bait the moment you opened your eyes. So look around, not with your sight, your suspicion. Notice the walls that do not echo. Notice the faces that smile a half-second too late. Notice the sentences people speak as if they were remembering rather than thinking. The demon doesn't need to appear. It only needs you to realize that it never had to. And if none of this is real, if every friend, every stranger, every streetlight and memory and heartbeat is just architecture made for one observer, then the universe is not a home. It's a mask. This isn't about truth. It's about courage. Would you rather live in a lie that feels safe, or a prison you are finally awake inside? Because once you see the bars, the cell is gone. The world is gone. And all that remains is the one who is watching you watch back.